Welcome to Inquiring Minds with Steve Harper and Donna Carlin. I'm Donna Carlin from the No Ceiling Just Sky Institute, and this is Steve Harper, the king of the Ripplers.
I don't think anybody's ever called me the king of the Ripplers. I love that.
I do all the time.
I may have to get a T-shirt printed with that. I like that.
Yeah,
How are you
that
doing
would be
today?
perfect. I'm doing well. How about you?
I'm doing good. I'm excited for today's conversation. This show is really starting to pick up some momentum. People are telling us how much they enjoy it. They love our inquiring minds because it's opening up theirs to think of some of these things that we're talking about. And I'm excited about today's conversation.
I hope so, because it's all about the ripple. And I've been thinking a lot about this. We even intimated something at the end of the last show because the ripple is unbelievably powerful, right?
Yep.
It goes well beyond our knowing. So if we have a phenomenal interaction with somebody or horrible interaction with somebody, they take it with them, and it literally has a ripple effect well beyond anything that we know.
Yep. Absolutely.
I'm curious. Inquiring minds, there you go. I am curious to know, has anybody said to you that you shared something with them and this is what happened because of it, and they gave you the story behind what happened for them? Do you get any of that?
Oh, I get that a lot. I actually just really had a fairly serious conversation with a teacher friend of mine that had been following me on social media, who had really been questioning whether she wanted to continue in the teaching profession. And she follows me, engages with me on Twitter quite a bit. I tend to try and put out a ripple thought of the day, just a little bit of positive goodness in the in the social sphere, if you will, of all the craziness and negativity that tends to be out there. And she uses those questions and has in her classroom to kind of get conversations started with her students. But something, that I had posed about, are you doing the work you're supposed to be doing, right? Are you really living, the kind of life and doing the job that you think you were destined to do? And I'm paraphrasing what the topic was, but she reached out to me and she says, after 20 plus years, I have to say the answer is no. With all of the changes that administration has put on us and the challenges that COVID has put on us as teachers, I realized when I started looking at signing my next year's contract, I realized that my heart was no longer in it. And she said, I realized that when you asked that question, I hadn't really stopped to think about what the next future looked like, what my possibilities of my future could be, and where I could take it. I still love education. I still love working with kids. I don't like the bureaucracy that the school district that I work for is putting on me, but how could I do that if I'm not teaching? How do I stay engaged and involved in that? Her kids had long since left the house, and her husband are empty nesters. And I said, well, let's get on a call. Let's talk about it. And what we realized was through the process of sort of elimination, what she really enjoyed about the aspect of what she did was watching that light bulb go off in her kids' eyes and seeing how she was able to help them connect the dots and actually take that gigantic leap forward. And we started talking through the process of how she does it in the classroom and the challenges that she has, because you can't do that with all 30 kids that she's responsible for. But
Sure.
she was really good at figuring out how to get to those few. And she really had a sense of wanting to help the kids that came from challenging home environments. And so I said, well, what would that look like if you weren't teaching? And she didn't understand what I meant. And I said, well, what could you consider a possibility of how you can contribute in a way that isn't directly tied to the school district? Like, those students are still going to need help. Those parents are still struggling at home to provide the best education they can for their kids, and they may not be equipped necessarily to do it. And I said, what does that look like? And she started thinking about the process of how she could continue to teach without being a teacher. And she now has a blossoming home education program that she's doing for parents that are really struggling with the school system and need that extra level of tutoring. And she didn't think it was going to be successful initially. And what she has found is she has a backlog of students that want to join her program. And now it's equipped her not only with the income replacement that she had for her job, but she's actually potentially expanding so quickly she may be able to hire 2 or 3 teachers that are ready to leave, that education environment. So I look at those things and I kind of look at how you started on one spot all the way over to where she ended up, and she's happier than she ever has been. So the you never know where those conversations or where those questions might take you, but if you don't ask them and you don't have them, you'll never know.
It's really interesting. Pre-COVID, I was traveling a lot to Chicago because I had clients there, and the homeless population is huge there.
Yep.
And there would be at least 10 individuals between my hotel and the building I was working in, which was a block and a half away, just so you know. And I would speak to all of them. So they got to know the Canadian was back. It was really funny. And one day I'm walking with a client of mine, and one of them says, "Oh, she's back. The Canadian's back. Have a blessed day." And he looked at me and he said, "Why isn't he asking you for money?" So I said to him, "I see him every day. I speak to him every day. I bring him food. I bring him juice. I bring him fruit. I bring him stuff that I know is healthy for him. I only had Canadian dollars, and I'm not giving him my credit card, I'll tell you." So, I wanted to see a way to help him. And when I had some time and I'd be outside, if the weather was nice, I would ask him, "How's your day going? And who did you see that was new?" And just to help him realize that he's a human being, probably didn't choose to be on the streets, and I can't change that for him. But what I could do is view him as a human being, somebody who has value.
Absolutely.
And every time I would see him, he'd break out into a huge smile, ask me how my day's going. If my clients were giving me a hard time, it was a scream. And I knew that I made a difference because people would put their heads down and ignore them as if they didn't exist.
Yep.
And there's nothing worse, I think, for any human being to feel as if they weren't relevant.
Well, the premise of today was the domino effect of the ripple and how it goes beyond our knowing, right? That's kind of what our kickoff idea was about this conversation. And if you think about your scenario and you think about my scenario, just the fact that we recognize something in another human being and that we take the time to get to know them and just contribute a little bit. It's not maybe impacting the outcome, but it is impacting the moment. And that moment is what leads to other moments. And I can only imagine that every time the homeless problem in Chicago is horrible, and it's got to be an incredibly challenging environment for somebody with no resources or no help. But you provided that little ripple of kindness, which extended beyond the first time you did it to the next time you did it to the time after that, and every day since that you've seen that person and all of them that you talked to. And what your client got to see was the impact of another human being connecting with a human being. And it's such a beautiful, gift that you gave them. And that does go beyond our knowing, because you don't know how difficult that person's life is. You can make assumptions that it's probably pretty rough, but you also have no idea what an indelible mark you probably made on that person.
And I think it's also being consistent. I think we need to pay attention to the fact that, I could speak to this individual on the way into the building in the morning, going to work. A lot of people would not do that if they were with a client, a paying client, because who knows how that client would view what it is that you're doing with, maybe enabling them to be on that corner and making them feel uncomfortable, whatever it is. I am, as you probably have figured out over the years, a what you see is what you get kind of person. And I don't change my approach or my personality or my words if I'm speaking to the highest level politician to, the homeless person on the street. As far as I'm concerned, they are all human beings and have intrinsic value to our society, whether it's a wake-up call or we feel like hitting them over the head with a 2x4. And I'm not talking about the homeless person right now. Some of the politicians that we are dealing with these days, there's a ripple effect for everything. And absolutely. I really think that if you could get the message out and teach people that what they say goes well beyond that moment, well beyond those words, well beyond that circumstance, that, maybe we will be a little bit of a kinder society.
Yeah, yeah. Well, I mean, two things that come to mind that as you share the impact of that story is what it did to your client that day, right? At the end of the day, they saw you in a different light, and they probably saw that person in a different light. And if it's close to their office, they may encounter that individual again. And at some juncture, maybe they'll take your example and carry it forward and actually treat that person like another human being and say hello. And you just never know what the impact is. Not to mention anybody around who may have seen what you did and the ripple effect you may have had on them. There was a video a few years back, and it was a homeless man outside of I want to say a subway station or a train station. And he has a sign that says, "I'm blind. I cannot see. Anything can help." And he has a little tin can. And occasionally you'd see somebody come by and drop a few pennies in. But for the most part, everybody just walked by and ignored him. Except this one lady. And the video kind of shows it. And I don't know if it's authentic or not, but the lesson is still valuable.
Yeah.
She took the sign and she flipped it over. And she pulled out of her purse a pin. It said, "Today's a beautiful day. I wish I could see it." And she gave the sign back to him. And she dropped a few dollars in his can. And you watch this over the course of the next little bit. People came by and they looked at the sign and they had a different perspective. And they started dropping money in, and he had more money than his little can could handle. And pretty soon here comes this lady, and she comes with a bigger coffee can for him to collect. So but at the end of the day, the lesson, whether the video is accurate or not, I cannot confirm. But the lesson is accurate in that we all have the ability to make an impact. And if we're willing to step outside of our box and do so, the impact of that ripple can go well beyond anything that we can imagine. And as you say, the domino effect of that could be the influence it has on the rest of the world and the different aspects of people, that what they see and how they learn from your example, which is, I think, the goodness of the process of rippling in my mind.
For sure. There's no question. It's an amazing feeling, though.
It is.
Do you find that when you see a response that you didn't expect from somebody, it's unbelievable. I remember going to a movie and dinner with an old friend from high school who is quite a bit self-centered. And I'm so used to her behavior, though, because I've known her since I'm 13 years old, I guess. And so we go to the movie, and as we're walking to the restaurant, people are going from the restaurant to the movie because it's in the same complex. So as I'm talking to her, I'm walking by and I'm smiling and nodding to people as they're coming towards me. And she's trying to figure out what I'm doing. And we're not stopping. We're continuing to go. Some people stopped dead and looked at me like, do I know her? Some people stopped and then gave me this huge smile and then continued on their way. And then we went into the restaurant, and a young server who's a student, trying to make some money for college, came over to our table, and she immediately gave an order. And I asked him what was special about his day. And he said, "I just got accepted to my college of choice." Oh. And he was like over the moon. And I congratulated him and asked him what he was taking. And finally, he left. And she says to me, "What is going on there? Do you know everybody that we were passing? Because they all stopped and smiled at you or nodded or something." I said, "No, I was just acknowledging their existence. That's it. I wasn't treating the waiter as if he was just like an inanimate object or a waiter. He's a kid he had this huge smile on his face. I wanted to know what he was really excited about. And I was happy for him. I said, that's something that, I can't teach somebody to feel, but I could invite them to explore what that is. And the ripple effect is huge.
Well, and the ripple you made for him, consequently rippled for you as well, because you still remember that story and you still remember how it made you feel. And hopefully it stood as an example for your high school friend to maybe think beyond herself to maybe want to contribute in her own way out there in the world. And that's the only thing that you hope to do. That's the only, goal behind what I do with the ripple effect, is just try and give people a different perspective on the impact that they do have, whether it's a complete stranger, someone on the corner that's homeless, someone that's in your community, your own spouse. We all want to and feel acknowledged by someone else. And oftentimes when you take that necessary step to step outside your box to recognize them, just to acknowledge them, you are in essence rippling.
What is the reflective question, I know I'm putting you on the spot here, that you could leave people with for them to consider what ripple really means? What could you leave them with?
What it really means for them or for me, or, clarify that just a little bit for me so that I make sure I give you the right answer. The reflective question they're asking themselves?
Yes.
Did I make a difference today? I always tell people in my trainings and the corporate work that, the best acknowledgement of contributing at any level during the day is when you lay your head on the pillow and say, did I make a difference today? Did I contribute in any way positive? And set your goal and your intention that if you just want to do it one time, just make an impact one time. And it doesn't always have to be, significant steps, to make an impact. Sometimes it's just picking up that little piece of trash that somebody left in the parking lot right next to your car tire, or, finding a way to, just make someone smile, or just acknowledge, look up from your phone and actually just make eye contact with somebody. And you just know for that just little brief second, they feel seen. Those are the things that make the biggest difference. And it's amazing when you start doing it and you set your intention to do it once per day. When you lay your head down at night, when you go through it, you start thinking, wow, I did it here, I did it there, I did it everywhere. And you sleep better, you feel better, and you want to do more of it.
There you go. Beautiful.
Well, fantastic. Thank you so much for this conversation. This was amazing. You always are, and your perspective is beautiful. And so I'm so grateful to be doing this show with you. And we'll be back very soon with another episode of Inquiring Minds. Before we leave, however, Donna, how do people get in touch with you if they have a topic or a question or something they'd like us to talk about in a future show? How would they do that?
Or even a story to share. I would love to hear that.
Absolutely. Yes.
Best way is through my portal website, Donna at donnacarlin.com, Karlin. And I really would love to hear from you. And how do people get hold of you and hear more about the ripple?
Yeah, well, my website is ripplecentral.com. You can send me an email, steve@ripplecentral.com, or I'm on Twitter every day with a Ripple thought of the day, and my handle is @rippleon. So we will definitely be back very soon with another episode. Thank you for joining us. We look forward to your comments. We look forward to your questions and any topics, stories that you'd like to share with us. Until next time, take care.
Have a good one.